Right, our final one for this time. This is one that you brought up, isn't it?
Yeah, this came to me the other day, and is James Bond actually science fiction?
I have opinions.
Yes, so he does have opinions. I think your dad would as well. Big.
My dad's opinion would be no.
Yeah, but is he right? Okay. The prosecution will now lay out their case.
Go for it, my lad.
James Bond contains an awful lot of fantastical gadgets, most of which are to varying degrees all but impossible. And they may have, this goes back to one of our earlier questions about, is it still sci-fi if technology moves on? And there are things in James Bond films which at the time were impossible, but are theoretically possible or have since become possible. So I think in what's the one with the I think it's Moonraker with the removable fingerprints, like change your fingerprints.
Oh yeah.
I'm also Moonraker in and of itself. I think the American shuttle program was in its infancy at the time, but Moonraker is based on an Ian Fleming book where does Bond actually go into space?
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, there's people screaming at the screen now. But no, the invisible car. Top Gear did actually prove that it's theoretically possible, but actually mostly impossible with the technology.
Mostly useless as well.
Yeah, it's not exactly stealth. It just looks weird. But essentially, yeah, and there's a few other bits and pieces. But essentially, I think James Bond strays into science fiction territory.
I would argue that it doesn't. The gadget stuff is traditional for a spy action drama. I mean, look at Dick Tracy with his radio phone with a...
But Dick Tracy...
No, he didn't have a radio phone, he had a radio watch.
Yeah, but Dick Tracy is science fiction.
Dick Tracy's not. It's a detective drama.
Set in a science fiction version of the 1930s world.
I'm going to argue that's not. Having gadgets in something doesn't make it science
fiction.
No,
but it's not just the gadgets. The other thing as well is that James Bond kind of almost operates in a parallel universe. It's never specifically dated, certainly in the older films and the books as well. Things, they play a bit fast and loose with time periods. Also the fact that the James Bond regenerates several times and nobody says anything. Actually, Felix Leiter, the actor who plays Felix Leiter, changes a lot as well. I think there's been 3 different people playing Felix Leiter, possibly 4. Miss Moneypenny has been played by 3 different people.
Yeah.
M. Well, see, M
actually gets replaced. It's not the same person.
Yeah, they refer to your predecessor used to keep a bottle of brandy or something like that.
Yeah.
So there is scope that some of the characters can be replaced, but is James Bond a code name for 007 and they can be different people? Or are they supposed to be the same person? Or do they continually reboot the franchise?
I'm very much of the opinion that it's not something you're supposed to think about.
Yeah, although it would be quite a neat way of dealing with it if they kind of alluded to the fact that maybe 007 is an agent's code which comes with the code name of James Bond. So James Bond is not really James Bond. They're merely an agent who's given that code name. And that agent can change over time. And that nicely encapsulates Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, and Pierce Brosnan, and all the others.
Except Skyfall and Spectre stop that being true unless Daniel Craig is canonically supposed to be the first Bond. Because in Skyfall, he sees the graves of his parents and their surname is Bond. and Inspector, his brother, refers to him as James.
I think the problem is, and this is another scourge that hits Star Trek, is that film studios like to reboot and they trash a lot of the continuity. We've seen that in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen elements of that start to creep into Star Wars. And I think that's another problem that's turned up in James Bond. And I'd argue some of that is down to sloppy writing. Rather than researching everything, it's like, oh, we'll just have a complete reboot from scratch and everything else is now non-canon. And I don't like that. It put me off the new Star Trek films. There was no reason to destroy Romulus and to destroy Vulcan. I felt it added nothing to the story. It was a lazy plot point and it just doesn't work for me. It grates so badly. But to get back to James Bond, yes, I think it is sci-fi. You don't?
I'm sorry, I'm very much of the opinion that gadgets don't make something sci-fi.
I think it's certainly soft sci-fi. But I'm sure you've got thoughts yourselves. Leave your comments in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and I think some of you too may have some strong views. We'd love to hear them. And also,
hi, Dad.
Yeah, her dad's probably...
My dad will take steps to get onto the internet just to tell us we're wrong.
Even now, his ears are burning. Somebody's being wrong in the James Bond universe. This cannot be allowed to stand. But also, don't forget, you can also catch up with us on the hashtag Sci-Fi Chat podcast over on Twitter.